And I am now here with the head basketball coach of the state champion Massillon Tigers. That is Josh Host. Coach, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Appreciate it. So, thanks for being patient. I had to kind of bump you, so appreciate your patience.
No problem at all. I mean, as I said before started recording, it has been probably a very hectic week for your team coming back with the Division II state championship trophy and a wild victory over Westerville North. But I want to get a full scope of this entire season, Coach. You have been with this program for a number of years now, had a very competitive team the last few seasons, and this year was unlike any other for Massillon basketball. When did you start to kind of feel like, obviously every coach says that their team is good enough to compete and to win, but when did the idea of the state championship being brought back to Massillon really start to form for you?
Well, I guess the group we had coming back. What I mean. So last year, let's go back to that. 18-4 regular season. Excuse me. We had some big victories during the regular season. You kind of saw the possibility last year making a run. Didn't happen. Didn't come to fruition. Whatever you want to say. We lost to a Shaker Heights team in that district final last year, and I think if we get through that one, which we hadn't won one in a few years, so I think there was some tension there, some angst going into that game. So I think that fueled us for the next chapters, like taking that next step. So fast forward, we go to the summer, get our group together. Again, a lot of guys with a lot of experience that play a lot of varsity basketball for us. So we got up to Midwest Live and played some really good teams, played well up there. So I started to kind of formulate things, but then you wait for football to get there and get done and you guys get back and make sure everybody's healthy. So into the season, I think the one that kind of sparked a little bit of interest was the CBCA game. We're down 18 going in the fourth on the road against a team I thought was really, really good. And they ended up going into a regional and Division III. Came back and won on the road. So that kind of sparked maybe some ideas of like what it would be. And then you going into like a Elyria, team that was in a regional that we, played really well against in the shot clock shootout. So there was signs there. But when it really flipped, man, that's a good question. I kind of believed in this team all along. But we had to see some proof there, beat some really good teams along the way. So again, saw snippets of it. But when I thought maybe like, okay, we could do is when we started playing defense at the end of the year, going into the tournament, because that's one thing I was like, I think we're just content beating teams, outscoring them. And it works sometimes in the regular season, but not necessarily when you get in the tournament play. And you saw that this weekend with the way those games played. They're a slugfest. It's semi sloppy, semi disorganized. Defense is kind of reigning supreme. So once we took that level of maturity where we thought the defense, our guys bought into like playing defense the way we can, I kind of like, okay, this might happen.
We'll definitely get into the state games here in just a moment. You kind of mentioned one of those games, CVCA, one of the close matchups you had this season, many close matchups you had throughout the course of the regular season. Do you think something like that allows your players to have a better sense of how to finish games and how to close things out when you're in high pressure situations like that?
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's the benefit of we beefed the schedule up, knowing that we had a chance this year to do some things. I think our schedule last year down the stretch hurt us a little bit and didn't challenge our guys enough. Um, again, going back to the experience, when you got guys like Jada Stigpink back with 96 games of varsity experience after it's all said and done, and Gio and Braylon and X, Isaiah, all 60 to 70, some varsity games. Um, you want to challenge them because again they got the experience now and all that. So I think those type of games helped us because we actually talked about it in the huddle. And in game 28, we're talking about it on Sunday about, hey, we've been here before. We were down 14 to McKinley. We were down 18 to CVCA. We talk about those experiences and having to draw back on those. And if you're not playing tough teams that put you in those spots, and you don't know how to respond. So you don't, like to your point, you don't know how to close games out. It's easy to do it when you're ahead or, when everything's clicking well for you. But our guys learned how to do it, some pretty tough competition when things weren't going well for us.
Now, on the other end of that, when you had some of those heated moments, especially during the state run, getting a few technical fouls in the final two games, having a bit of difficulty closing out regulation of the state final, how do you keep your own head on straight and cool, basically, let alone telling your players to do the same?
Yeah. The technical really stunk because I was just trying to get a timeout. And the guy said I was out of the coach's box on Saturday. Sunday, the technical was actually one of our players, had just taken it too far, or questioned a call at the ref. And, that stuff like that's part of the game. It happens. We're competitive. But we just kept trying to calm each other down, a couple timeouts just to kind of, catch our breath and just kind of refocus. But yeah, I mean, I guess I hate to keep bringing it up, but this group I had a little more faith in than past years because of the experience. Like, you had guys on the court that, been there, done that, been through some battles together. And I learned how to kind of manage some of these guys a little better over the last, Jadis and I have been together 4 years, Braylon, Gio, and X, and Isaiah, 3 years they've been on the varsity. Like, pick up tendencies of when they need to, encouraged and hugged on, and other times when they need a little bit of fire under them. So I guess that helps you kind of keep calm, is that you just know each other so well. You start, like I said, 2 years ago, I probably didn't know how to handle them as well because I'm still learning them. They're still learning to trust me. So I guess that trust piece is a big part of it too. Is we're down whatever 15 points in the past. If you don't have the trust of your team and belief that what I mean, of what they could do, you probably get a little more, like you said, kind of losing your head. But when we built some trust with each other and we've seen it happen multiple times, hey, we got this. You know what I mean? And so I guess that's kind of what it is probably that trust, and then just knowing each other so well, going through a lot of battles. I think most coaches would tell you that when they get in those, it's the teams that you've known a long time and seen them come back from those moments or handle those moments.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, the technical on Sunday came, as you mentioned, during the development of the 15-point lead for Westerville North. What are you really trying to make sure your guys get the point of when you're in the timeouts during that campaign? Because I remember reading in a publication this week that you were afraid that the guys were kind of losing hope, if I'm not mistaken, or losing like their drive a little bit.
I just called them out a little bit in that timeout. I think we were down. I think it was 12 or 13 at the time. And I just saw we didn't get back on a play where we turned the ball over, and that's not us. And I saw us throwing our hands up at each other and kind of some of the frustration. They hit 3 threes in a row and, to put a run together. And so the timeout was simply to kind of refocus them. I challenged them. I said, are you guys really going to quit right now? Come this far, you look like you're quitting, and that's not us. And I kind of pointed to the crowd, like, all these people are here to watch you guys, and this is what we're going to put on the floor, product wise. And it's funny because when I went back and watched the TV production of the game, because you're in the moment, I saw a different team walk out of that huddle and then walked into it. And that's what we were trying to do is I can see a different poise. Say, okay, hey guys, let's go out, string a couple stops together, go back to offensively attacking the rim, looking for the good shots. We just kept stressing one possession at a time. You can't do it all at once. You're not going to hit the one, bring us back from 15 down. It's going to be, a sustained effort. And they talked to each other out there. I think Braylon and, maybe Jadis, Isaiah, they were all talking and just saying, hey, let's get this thing under 10, going into the fourth. And, so they did. They got to 8. So that time was definitely calling them out because they didn't see it, but they're griping at each other. And it looked like they just kind of like, oh, man, like I said, it looked like we were giving up on ourselves. And that's not how we are wired. That's not how we got here. So, my job, I guess, sometimes is to kind of make them aware of how they look and how they're playing, and then give them some direction.
I think it's safe to say, Coach, that the one play that was most crucial that they got back on down the floor was the block from Xavier Williams in the closing seconds of regulation. You've coached hundreds of games in your career at this point. Where does that rank for you among the sort of plays that are the difference makers of whether a team wins or loses a game?
Well, I mean, because of the magnitude of the moment and the stakes that we're tie game with 15 seconds or 13 seconds left. I think he blocks it with like 10. It's got to be the best. I mean, because you got a state championship on the line, and he makes that. It doesn't necessarily mean we lose, but it's going to be hard down two with like 7 or 8 seconds left against a really good team. It's not guarantee you're even going to get a shot, let alone a good look. So, yeah, I mean that play in the moment, people keep asking me, in the moment, like I didn't even, like, I know he blocked it. It was just kind of like whatever. Then after the game, and you start to see stuff on social media, all the posts, and like, oh my gosh, I guess I'm thinking like, okay, do I call the timeout or I see if we get it in quick and advance it, and I burn one and get a sideline out for a shot? and then he blocks it out of bounds and it ends up being our ball. Like it just okay, it's play, and so you don't have a time to like just absorb what just happened. And my goodness, like I mean, this timing that is a split second late, it's off the backboard and it's probably goaltend. And if he's too, he doesn't get as high as he does and hits the body, it's a foul and everyone in the line. Like all those things happen. His timing was perfect. His effort was absolutely amazing. I think Braylon said last night in one of the interviews, like he was laying on the floor on the baseline going for the rebound, got knocked down, and he said I looked and saw like stutter stepping, and like I knew it was coming because he's done that a lot. That's one of his like signature moves is the chase down block. Just gets up there and nobody suspects it because he's 5'10" or 11, but he can climb the ladder and go up there and get that.
I was going to ask you about that play where you did have a timeout if Westerville was able to score on that play. Do you take the timeout there? And if so, what is the strategy going into the final play down two as opposed to what it ended up being?
Yeah, so that's where I was kind of like, I don't like to call one on the baseline up because I think in that moment sometimes you can advance it quick. And we did have some guys down the court because there was a scrum down there by the hoop. And I think Jadis was on the floor, after he shot the layup. And I think Braylon got knocked down going for the rebound. So sometimes you're able to advance it quick. And I'd like to save it and see, sometimes that's the best look you can get because they don't have a chance to set up their defense. On the flip side, it's like if they're laying down on the ground down there, do you even have anybody to outlets to? So our guys traditionally, they get the ball in quick and our mentality is we're going to get it in quick and try to advance it. And I'll burn it if we don't get it, don't have a quick look or a good opportunity to take a shot when the defense isn't set. The one reason I said it, I kind of burnt the one on the sideline. I was, telling the guys, I really wanted to advance it and call it even with 7 seconds left. But we were struggling. Like you mentioned about closing out the game. They're so good and they're so long. We were having a hard time getting the ball in bounds. Our number one priority there in my mind was let's get the ball in bounds to have a chance to get a shot and not give them the ball back. So we got it in and miscommunication between Braylon and I wanted him to get downhill and try to put pressure on the rim and maybe kick it out. They were doubling this because he's been our go-to guy in those moments. X has obviously hit some big shots. Gio's very capable, but Braylon took one. He kind of regretted it afterwards. But our biggest thing is like, hey, it's tie game. We just don't want them getting another shot, and we want to have an opportunity to either go into overtime or win it. So bad play design on my part, bad communication on my part. But the kids executed, decently, and then we took care of business in overtime, so it all worked out.
You're able to close out the game on a shot by Thigpen, and then you were able to get a fast break in the closing seconds there. One player that I don't think has been talked about enough, and I don't know if you had this in your mind, Coach. What was it? Marcus Garner, I believe, had the outlet pass to lead to the winning, or I guess I should say, final score of the game for you guys. How crucial was that from him?
Marcus played great all weekend, and he played big for us when Gio was out for a couple games there. And I think honestly, the silver lining of Gio being sick and missing a couple games is that Marcus got a chance to kind of work in the rotation more minutes. He was always in the rotation, but he got a bigger role in that. And so we developed a little bit of continuity with him. So with Isaiah getting knocked out, which I mean, he's a big piece of our whole defense and offensive system. He's not able to go, and they're killing us on the boards. Marcus goes in and plays great. That play you're talking about, I mentioned several times. People like Braylon's on the sideline looking around. He hits Marcus in the middle of the court. Marcus, everybody looks at him, thinks he's a football player, but Marcus is a really good basketball player. He's a smart basketball player. He knew well enough that they're going to try to foul. He got it to X right away before the guy could get out, rotate over to foul him. And, they gave us the 5-point lead and kind of put the things on ice, give us a, two score lead. That's a huge play. Because if you get out there, the clock stops, maybe he hits both or one, but you're still like within striking distance and the clock has stopped. So, hats off to Marcus, heads up play. Braylon heads up, finding him in the middle of the court, and then X was in the right spot, and Marcus knew where to go with it. So, the guys trusted their training and got to the spots. And we run a lot of drills like that with transition, and they executed perfectly.
Taking a look at your own coaching background, we did some research. Obviously, your dad Butch was a former coach himself and school administrator. Were there any particular qualities or lessons that you got from him in terms of coaching that you found were proved to be true throughout this tournament run?
One thing I noticed, my dad, he quit coaching when I was pretty young. because he came home and I've told the story, but my neighbor was teaching me how to throw a football. And like, that's messed up. I'm coaching everybody else's kids in football, and my neighbors teach my son how to do it. So he made a sacrifice for us. But the one thing that always impacted me is my dad always seemed to have great relationships with the players, like, the guys that come up to him and talk to him, kids, and then when he was a principal, same thing. And the kids he was hardest on, or held the most accountable, it used to seem to be the people that gravitated towards him as adults and came back and appreciated it. So I guess, I've been big on relationships and coaching. I think it's, the number one thing that as coaches, like, you can be the smartest guy in the room and know all the X's O's in the world, but if you're don't have a great relationship with your team, and moments when you're down 15 in the state championship game and you go in there and they don't trust you or believe in you or know that you have their best interest in, at heart, they're not going to buy into it. So we put a lot of time into building relationships with our guys. We're around them a ton. And I think I probably got a lot of that from the guys I've coached for that have been successful on my dad. But they say they don't, I forget what coach it was, but they say they don't care how much you know, they know how much you care. And I think that's rung true, as you asked. I think that's definitely a thing that, even whether I was coaching girls or coaching boys, that trumps everything is those relationships, because in those moments, that's what you lean on.
And I got one last question for you, Coach, and it is not the
Sure.
one that has been asked throughout the week, which is Massillon now a basketball school? But it
Thank goodness.
is. How does Massillon stay among the top basketball programs in Ohio?
Great question. I haven't been asked that one yet. I think it's one thing I learned in this run is again, it's hard to win a state championship, and everything has to fall right, timing, get a guy hurt, all that stuff. But to answer your question, I think you got to remember how we got here. We built from the ground up, and just keep feeding the feeder system, putting time in with the youth, putting time with your middle school, having good people around you. I can't say enough about our staff. Maintaining, like, have a north star. You know what I mean? Have a culture, have a vision, what you want to be about. Your core values, et cetera, all those things they talk about. But it is true, because the second you think you build it and you don't have to maintain it is the second the car breaks down on you. Right? So I think we just got to continue to do what we do. We got to continue to build those relationships. We got to continue to develop kids, and not take shortcuts, not expect it to be easy, because now it's a state final and one. Now things are going to get easier. No, it's going to get harder. Like, I mean, I already see some emails coming through of teams that want to play, and people want you to play in this classic and that classic. And it's not like easy wins that are calling you. It's big name teams. So I think that, just go back to your question. I think it's like we got to remain who we are, stay grounded, stay rooted in what got us here, and continue to kind of sharpen the sword or sharpen the axe every day, and just stay true to the process.